So this doesn't strike me as a Baroque violin, because I don't see very much about it that makes me go, oh, it's Baroque.
Well,
am I right about that?
It's not so very different from a Baroque violin. I'm playing this instrument today because we're playing Mozart.
Right.
And this is an instrument from the 1770s, so it's exactly right for Mozart. And it's a time when they were starting to change things, but you know, there's no chin rest.
Right.
The fingerboard's a bit longer than a Baroque violin would be.
And what effect does that have?
Well, you can play higher.
Of course, I'm so sorry.
Because
yes,
they started, literally, actually, some Baroque composers were writing fiendishly high stuff, but you are really right on the end of the fingerboard for that. But this is quite a special violin because it was never modernised. This is exactly as it was when it was made. And it was made not very far from here, where we are on the South Bank. It was made at the Royal Exchange in London by an English maker called Jon Jacob, who was, he modelled his violins to some extent on Strads. They're not as good as Strads, but they are very nice instruments. And what's different from a Baroque violin is mainly that the neck is angled. Baroque violin, you would get the neck would be just coming up straight from the. They just started. And
what effect does that have by it being slightly?
It gives it more power, more tension.
Okay.
You get more tension if you think that by angling the neck back a bit, you're increasing the tension on the string.
Right.
And so you get a bit more power, really. They were just more was being demanded of the instruments. I mean, that's why.
Do you know where that was coming from? Was that coming from composers or was it coming from instrumentalists? I mean, often in the depths of your historical knowledge.
I think it's a chicken and egg thing, really.
Right.
I think, when you think about Beethoven particularly, was really pushing the boundaries with what he was demanding of instruments. In terms of, he wants sort of big sounds and a lot more notes, really. You sort of go whizzing up to the top of the instrument, and I think it was also coming from bigger concert halls was starting. It's sort of democratization of music in a way was starting to happen end of the 18th century, beginning of the 19th century. And I would imagine that players would be going to makers and saying, I need this to produce a bit more sound and do more for me.
Can it go very much? I mean, I know that we're now talking about a modern instrument, but can it go very much further than it is at the moment, a modern violin? Is there very much more development that's needed?
It's not that much more, really. In fact, this is, I suppose, I'd need a modern violin to have a look at this sort of angling of the neck, but this is quite angled. The neck would be longer on a modern violin. I mean, if this instrument had been modernised, they would have chopped off the scroll and chopped off here and made a new neck, which would be longer and more angled. So you get even more tension. And then mostly, the body doesn't change at all, the actual violin, but it's all the bits and pieces. It's the bass bar and the sound post, which are inside, which you don't see, would be thicker, stronger, heavier. The bridge also would be a bit higher. All those things which increase the tension and therefore increase the power on the instrument.
What about the bow? Tell me about the bow.
This bow's an early 19th century bow, also English. Don't know who made it.
What's that made of?
Well, I'm afraid that's made of ivory, but it's very old ivory. That elephant died hundreds of years ago.
Right.
And yeah, this is starting to look like a modern bow. That it's got the inward curve and the sort of hammer head rather than the.
Yes, because normally a Baroque bow.
A Baroque bow would be tapered.
Yes.
and it's longer. It's got more hair. They were starting to. In fact, this one could have a ferrule, which is the thing which holds the hair in place, and it enables you. I think it enables you to have more hair.
Right.
Again, it's all about sort of more and bigger
Yes.
and better and
Yes.
louder.
And do you all pretty much play? Is there a certain criteria for most of the players when you're doing a work that calls for a different kind of instrument? Do you all pretty much have to have the same amount of hair on the bow or the same length of neck? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I do know what you mean.
In order to maintain that tone.
The truth is that at this time, I mean, in the 18th century, early 19th century, things were so much in flux. I think people were experimenting, different bow makers were making different kinds of bows. They were trying to find the thing that really worked. And so there wasn't real standardization. There's much more standardization now.
But playing in the band now?
Playing in the band now, we have a mixture of things.
Right. So that must surely mean that one concert played on one set of instruments can be very different from the same band in a different concert.
I suppose so. I mean, certainly everyone playing on Baroque instruments is going to sound different from everyone playing on classical instruments.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a lovely thing. Thank you very much.
It is. Thank you.